Hello YouTube art fans, my name is Pam. I am going to be showing you today from start to finish a soapstone sculpture that I started a few weeks ago. The only section that I didn't show you was after the wet sanding. You'll see in the video, after the wet sanding I actually put the sculpture into the oven, heat it for 15 minutes or so, and then apply the oil. I did not show that process. Maybe let me know next time if you want to see it. So without any further ado, the first shot here that you see, the still, is basically the raw stone. I had started on the back side, obviously, but yeah, this is what I was starting with as far as raw material goes. Hope you enjoy the video. The sound in this part of the video makes it sound like I'm using a jackhammer. I wish I were this fast. That would be so great. It would be a superpower for sure. In this section, I'm just working on the feet. As you can see from the bottom of the stone, the bottom of the feet, none of the feet are the same size. So I'm working on, first of all, getting each foot the same size, and plus I'm showing you that there's a natural fissure in the stone. This is a characteristic of all stone. It has natural fissures, it has lines, it has flecks of color, it has a lot of character. And you know, there's some people, or one person in particular that I'm thinking of, who refuses to buy any kind of sculpture, stone sculpture that has been broken in the past, which I think is quite silly, because stone has all these natural flaws, kind of like humans. And you know, it just adds, as far as I'm concerned, it makes it a more unique piece of art. Every crack, every line, every fleck of color, every innate flaw, it all makes it beautiful in my eyes. I hope everyone will bear with me. I do see in my video that sometimes I'm out of frame. I think my camera is actually too close to my work surface. I apologize. This is my first video ever, so hopefully you're kind in your critiques. You know, as I go along and learn this new part of things, the videoing and editing and whatnot, yeah, I'm going to make some mistakes, so cut me some slack. There, I just adjusted the camera so that I'm a little further back from it. Okay, so in this section I'm just showing the next step. So I've done the rasps, and as you could see that the rasps put quite deep gouges into the stone. So the next step after that would be obviously a finer rasp, which I'm using right now. Excuse me. And then move on to that straight blade that I'm using right there. There's no teeth on that. It's just, and it's not sharp. It's just a scraping tool, basically. It smooths out all of those those gouges from the rasp. Another step that you could use, it's too early to use sandpaper at this point. I think I'm just trying to clear a spot there so that I can show you what color it is, because the stone wall looks very gray and dusty, and it is. So you can see there that it's a beautiful green mottled color. Another thing you could do to smooth out all the rasp marks would be to use steel wool. That is a fast way of doing it. It's a good way, it's a fast way, and it basically doesn't reshape it at all. It just smooths out, it makes it a beautiful smooth surface. So but you have to do that dry, and it would be best to wear gloves if you're using steel wool, obviously, because steel wool slivers are not fun. Yeah, so you can see I'm just smoothing. And then the next step after this would either be steel wool, or I go right to wet sanding, which gives it its beautiful finish. I'm just talking about the feet at this point. I've seen a lot of sculptors who like to put their pieces onto a stand or a mount of some kind. I have done this in the past as well. I prefer to have it freestanding. When I'm finished with the sculpture, I will be placing suede pads on the feet so that whatever it is set upon furniture-wise, it won't leave a mark. Soapstone is incredibly soft, and just dragging it across a table will leave soapstone dust on your table. It doesn't damage the table or whatever the surface it's sitting on, but it's still kind of annoying to have, soapstone skid marks all over your furniture. Okay, I got my light issues sorted out. This is part 4, because there's no pause button on recording with YouTube. Weird. Anyway, so this is the piece of alabaster that I've chosen to make the tusks out of. I've already started separating, so this will be waste material up here, and these two will be the tusks to be inserted in the holes that I've created to receive them. I've got quite a few more hours of smoothing work to do. I've taken some of the gouges from the rasp out on one side. There's more gouges on this side. You may or may not be able to see that. Anyway, so yep, that's where we're at on this. There's a head on. Like the trunk is turning out okay. I've thinned it to where I want it to be. Almost ready for the polishing process. What I'm going to do is I'm going to finish making my tusks, and then I will be doing the next video on the polishing process, which will include, a lot of wet sanding. Yeah, that probably won't take place until tomorrow or the day after. I'll be back. Have a great day, YouTube. Bye-bye. Hello, art fans. Today's the day I am finishing the elephant sculpture. We're going to start with wet sanding. Here's what he looks like right now. I'm going to have to take my rings off because he's going to get tons of scratches if I don't do that. Here's his little face. I think I'm going to work on the eyes a little bit. And I got the tusks sculpted as well, the alabaster tusks. So that's them right there. That's the last thing that'll go in because I don't want the glue to melt when I put the stone in the oven. I have to heat the stone in the oven after it's polished at 350 for like 15 minutes, and then apply the linseed oil. So if I put the glue on, or glue the tusks in prior to doing that, they'll just fall out. Be right back. I just wanted to mention here that I did actually end up using steel wool on this sculpture to help smooth it out some more. Um, I did get a new rasp set, which has much more um, coarser rasps and leaves a lot deeper grooves. So I was finding it rather frustrating with just the scraping tool um, to get all the gouges out. So I did end up using steel wool. That worked wonderfully. Um, that allows me, because I use the steel wool and the scraping tool, it allows me to start right in on like a 2000 grit sandpaper rather than having to go over it 3-4 times with progressively finer sandpapers. So I started with the 2000, I finish it with the 3000. These are specific wet sanding papers. They're specific for wet sanding. I order them online. I'll often have a hard time in my town where I live finding wet sandpapers in the finest grit possible in hardware stores, so I just order it from Amazon or wherever I can get it from. Um, Actually, I think the last batch that I got was from Wish, of all places. It took a while for it to arrive, as you do with Wish, but it's really good stuff actually. I don't normally keep the water running when I'm doing this. I don't know why I did it this way this time. You usually have a container of water in the sink to wet sand with because, oh my god, this is wasteful. Please don't at me. I know the folly of my ways here, and like I said, I don't normally do it this way. I usually have a container of water where I'm reusing the same stuff over and over again rather than letting beautiful fresh water run down the drain. In this section, you can see I'm going back and forth with the wet sandpaper and my scraping tool. I often find, especially on the bottom part of the sculpture, I tend to miss places, so it's a lot of back and forth changing tools. Don't be afraid to, do what you got to do to get the job done. I'm going back and forth between sandpaper and the scraping tool, and sometimes I'm even using my rasps with the sandpaper wrapped around it to get into tight spots. Um, I'm a little obsessive when it comes to the polishing part, which I suppose is not a bad thing. Obviously, you want it to all be uniform, the same kind of finish all the way around as much as possible. I've had some people ask me about my process. I virtually never draw what I'm going to be making prior to making it. As I mentioned before, stone has natural fissures and flaws in it, and um, so you have to be fluid with your design. Because, like I said, with those fissures and flaws, if you use like a hammer or chisel or whatever on these stones, that can encourage those fissures to let go, and you end up with a sculpture that's two pieces instead of one. Um, in most cases like that, you could maybe glue it and keep working, as depending on where you are in the process. If it were to break at this point, I would not um, glue it together because it's very difficult to hide that seam. Um, However, if it breaks in the rasping stage, it's very easy to hide the flaw. So that section where I was just talking there super fast, it was just explaining how I put this piece into the oven for 15-20 minutes at 350 to get super, super warm so that it accepts the oil better. I use linseed oil, boiled linseed oil, um, and I do a couple of coats of that. So I'll rub it down now, and then I'll put it back in the oven for a few minutes, not 20 minutes again, just a few minutes because it's still pretty hot. I'll let the oil absorb, and then I'll reapply oil. And then after that, you have to rub it down with some alcohol because the linseed oil can get kind of sticky. In the last part of this section, I'm showing 2 completed sculptures that I have. Unfortunately, the time lapse couldn't be turned off for that small section, so take it for what it is. The first one is a soapstone bear. The soapstone bear is right there, and the nude in the background is alabaster. Okay guys, we're back. Just about to glue the tusks into my elephant here. And away we go. It's just a little bit warm still. It's not hot, it's just warm. Just want to make sure my holes have got nothing in them. Except glue. Let me guess, I'm almost out of glue, of course. I have found that brand name Crazy Glue or Super Glue doesn't work very well on soapstone. So I just get this from the dollar store or from Hasty Market across the street, whatever. It works really well. Et voila. Oh my god, it's like it was custom made. Oh wait, it was. So, beautiful white tusks. Beautiful gray mottled. There's some green, there's beige, there's black. I love this stone. It turned out to be the perfect color stone for this project. Well, I hope you enjoyed that whole process. A little glimpse into my freaky little world. And next video is going to be, I'm going to be sitting down to make some greeting cards. Every year in the spring, Guelph Creative Arts Association has a spring show and sale, which is what I'm building my inventory for right now. I will be there, Old Quebec Street Shops in Guelph downtown. I believe it's the weekend of May 1st.